You know, people can be absolutely rational and logical. You can't just look at someone and go, they're off their trolley, they're thinking of killing themselves. Not at all.
Welcome to Your Life But Easier. Sydney Banks stated, all feelings derive and become alive, whether negative or positive, from the power of thought. Having that deep realization will carry you through life, leaving you to feel calmer and more at ease, whatever life throws at you. It is so simple, yet so complex. This podcast will support you to see yourself differently, the life you are living, the body you live in, and the relationship you have with yourself and others. Each week, I offer an insight that will help you to see yourself with more understanding, kindness, and love. There's nothing to do but to see that the answer to an easier life is right in front of you. It is your life, but easier. Have fun listening. Hello and welcome to Your Life, but Easier. Today, our conversation will lead us into suicide. Every year, 700,000 people worldwide commit suicide. That is one person every 40 seconds. We recently experienced in our close family also a suicide, and it really struck us how people are not able to talk about it when they are wanting to commit suicide. People who really want to do it, they're not going to share that with others. And I heard afterwards from other people that when somebody really wants to do it, they're not going to share that. You often really don't have any idea that these people want to commit suicide. So this podcast is for all of you who have the thought of committing suicide, seeing it as real and not thinking that you can share that with anyone else or experience it, that it's something which will pass. Where we're coming from today is a slightly different perspective to see life from the inside out, knowing that we're living in a thought created reality and our experience is changing from moment to moment. First of all, I would like to welcome Alan Davey here. Alan is also my husband. He would like to share his story with you. Alan, we talked about that. The day you were thinking of committing suicide, nobody would have guessed that that is what you wanted to do. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about your story and then we take it from there?
Yeah, I won't go into massive details just yet, but you're absolutely right. It's a truism, I think, that close ones and family are going to be the last to find out. In my experience, I had kind of logically planned out my my exit, and it revolved around me leaving my house at a specific time. I'll tell you why later. But prior to that, because I'd made my decision, I was calm and relaxed. So if you'd have just turned up and seen me, you'd have thought, well, there's just a guy sunbathed in the garden, sat in a deck chair, which is exactly what I was doing, and looking calm and relaxed on account of being calm and relaxed because I had my plan. The anxiety of developing that plan, if you like, had passed. Yeah, so even my closest family, you couldn't know. They could not possibly have known what was going through my head. Really couldn't have done, and certainly no one outside of the family would have. You could not have told just by looking at me. No chance.
So what changed? Why are you sitting here today? How come you're sitting here?
The the, um, the moment was broken by, a very good long-standing friend. She, I don't know, had some kind of feeling about it, and she kind of came down the path. Literally, I would say probably seconds before I was about to get up and go, and she came down the path, and it kind of, for want of a better way of putting it put me on the back foot. And then she said, Come for a walk with me." And I did, and it broke the moment. And that was that really. And then somehow my thoughts on it shifted, and it no longer seemed like a good idea. Yeah, and it just changed from there, basically.
Mhm. So what I find really interesting in this story is that it was that one moment in time. So you saw your situation as real. You wanted, there was for you something that you didn't want to continue anymore. You saw that as so significant that you wanted to end your life. You thought for yourself that's the only way out. And then what happened then is your friend walked past and it broke that moment, like you just said. It broke that moment. So there for me, what I see is how we experience life comes from thought. Our past is kept alive via thought in this moment of time. I can see that as real. When I don't see that as thought, it is real. I need to act on it. I need to do something. I need to change something on it. The only way out is whatever I planned on doing. Now, when I can see that it is thought created, then I don't need to act on that. I can see that it's a moment in time and it's going to shift and it's going to be something else in the next moment. And that's what happened to you when that friend walked past. It shifted for you something. Your mind went on to something else, and that moment was broken.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it literally was a moment to moment change. Prior to her coming down the path, I absolutely would have done it. I was calm, I had a plan. It was all in place, and it was, yeah, it was, outside of actually doing it, it was a done deal, basically. And then and it was, I'd even stopped kind of contemplating about whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. It was signed and sealed. Um, and yeah, and then with her coming down the path, it really did break the moment, literally in a split second.
Now, where you know about that we live moment to moment in the reality of thought coming to us, what changed for you? What changed, or I say it differently, how do you see life different and that situation, what happened to you, how do you see that different today?
Um, well, I've actually been in some pretty difficult situations since then. Um, but my understanding of them, my attitude to them, their effect on me is significantly different. Um, because of that, because I do understand that I don't have to act on my thoughts and feelings, and then they will change. And even if you think they're not going to, and when I was contemplating suicide, that was a good example. There's no way, if you'd have asked me then, is this going to ever change? I'd have been absolutely no. But of course it did. Like everything, it always does. It literally always does. So, and then when I understand that, it means that, when I'm in a difficult situation or whatever, I can take a kind of a more relaxed view on it and say, okay, I don't like this situation, but you know, it is going to change. My feelings about it will change. My life will evolve and change. Yeah, and it does. It's continuously changing.
So what we normally experience is that we can see some things as thought, clearly as thought. We have the most ridiculous thoughts going through our head, but we know we don't need to act on them. We know that is thought. I always like to bring that example of a friend who, well, she's actually not a friend, it's someone I actually heard once talking about the understanding. And she was saying that she was walking her dogs always past that post box. And when she picked up the poo in her poo bag, she thought, how would it be if I post that poo? I mean, that's ridiculous thoughts we're having, but we never would do it. But then there's others which we see so as real, as you know, we need to act on it. That's the end of the world. That is it. It's never going to pass. What I also see, for example, when especially here in the UK, people like to buy houses. And then there's always big drama because there's a chain on one side and a chain on the other side, and you're in the middle of it, and it's just not going back and forwards. And then 6 months later, you look back at it and you just thought, God, what was that whole stress about? It was a moment in time. But then there are other things, and we see them as rock solid, rock solid. We have the feeling we need to act on that. But when we can see that every experience is a moment in time and it's going to change. Nice moments. We know when we have something, what we experience, what is a really beautiful moment, or if it is with your partner being very close, or if it is that you are in the countryside at a beautiful location and you do know that this moment never lasts forever. But then there is that time, and we see that as rock solid. And we were talking the other day to another friend, and she said something really interesting. She said, somehow it's, or you maybe said it, I don't know, it's your go free card. It's like when you play Monopoly, it's you go out of jail card. You are know that the way out, there is a way out, and that is for you really plausible. So suicide is your go free, how do you say, like go
Get out of jail.
get out of jail
Yeah.
card.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, I did say that, and it's a strange thing. I think anyone that has been really close to it will understand probably what I say there, in as much as once you've been that close, you know you've got past the fear and the anxiety about it and all the rest of the kind of complex feelings that come with it, and you know you're capable of it. And I think once you know you're capable of it, you always know you're capable of it. You can't unknow that. And that's what I meant when I said it's like a kind of get out of jail card. You know, you kind of stick it in your pocket and you think, well, if it was really, really so bad, I know I can do that. Having said that, you know, I've got, for instance, no intention of using my get out of jail card.
So how do you see life? How do you see life today then? Has something changed? Do you see life from a different angle?
Very much so. I think at the time I would say that my life ran me in a not a good way. And now I think I probably would take the view that life happens and it's not being done to me and I am not necessarily doing it. It just happens, and things that happen in it are ultimately neutral, and what spin I put on them, positive, negative, neutral, or whatever, is my take on it. So yeah, my outlook on life is radically different now to what it was then, for sure.
I love what you just said about the neutrality, that every moment, every situation is neutral. And we experience life through the neutrality of thought. Without the power of thought, we couldn't experience life, and it's always neutral. But what we do out of it, if we can see that, or when we can see that, how we experience it in the first place, every situation, it is experienced via thought. And whatever you put into that, that is giving you your reality. And that's what we would like to pass on to you. So when you have a moment in time, like you just so nicely said, it just is. It is, and it is not constant, and it will change. It will be something different in the next. And I only suffer when I take that moment very personal, and I cannot see how I experience it in the first place. When I can see, or as soon as I can see how I experience it via the neutrality of thought, then I know it's going to pass by, and I know I don't have to take that moment personal. Now you would say probably, well, that's more than a moment. It's a whole, it has a life on its own. But it only has a life on its own when I cannot see how I experience it in the first place via the power of thought, the neutrality of thought. When I can see that, that changes everything. And then it loses immediately the whole structure. It's like building a cart house. Do you call it cart house? Yeah. So it's like building a cart house. And in the moment I can see, oh, it's not real. It's a bunch of cards. I can pull one away and it's just falling to pieces. And that's the same thing. It only takes one thought, one thought, realizing how you see that in the first place. And your mind is getting quiet again because you can see the illusion in it.
Yeah. And you know, you may well think you are being entirely rational and logical, which you probably are in that moment, but then your logic and rationale changes. It shifts totally, you know, in a moment. I mean, I say you think you may well be thinking rationally and logically, and I say that because I'm a fairly analytical person because I'm in manufacturing and problem solving. So my plan of my exit was pretty detailed and well thought out. You know, if you look at it in an abstract sense, it's really logical and very well thought out. It was a great plan. It would have worked. It was efficient. It took care of all sorts of things, and it was thoroughly logical. And I thought it was a good idea. And then in a moment, my perspective on what I thought was logic instantly changed, and somehow it didn't seem like a good idea anymore. But yeah, it was logical at the moment. It was absolutely logical. It was a good idea. It was a genuinely good idea, and then a moment later, it wasn't.
So then afterwards, you saw someone, you went to counseling, I
Yes,
think, and you
yes,
also went on medication.
yes,
So you were on antidepressants, I think it was it?
yes. I was on a fairly high dose of Prozac. I don't know whether Prozac is still used, but it's a very famous one anyway. So I was on a fairly high dose of Prozac, which is supposedly an antidepressant, as you rightly say, and also diazepam, which is a kind of modern version of Valium, if you like, really, which is ultimately a kind of anti-anxiety pill. yeah, it kind of calms your head and your heart down, basically, and that it actually does do. It's a little bit like having a kind of, I don't know, like a hit of alcohol or something in that respect. The Prozac, honestly, I have no idea whether it works. I couldn't tell you. I mean, when I used to go to the doctors relatively regularly, and he used to ask me if I thought it was working, and literally every time I said I have no idea. And ultimately, I I would probably say no. I think what really made the difference for me was actually a change in perspective from me. It was far more powerful than any pharmaceutical, for sure. Absolutely. And I shifted and decided that I didn't need these drugs anymore and just stopped them. It's just like that. Instantly
Yeah.
stopped. And
And that's, I find really interesting. You decided from, if I remember that right, from today to tomorrow, just to stop your medication.
it was literally in the same amount of time that I decided not to kill myself. It was the same amount of time that I decided to stop taking the drugs. I was actually on the north coast with my brother to go surfing. It was a beautiful day, lovely swell coming in. And sometimes the Prozac made me feel a bit unwell, a little bit kind of stomach achy and a bit headachy and whatever. And I just thought, I don't want to feel unwell looking at that surf. I want to go and surf, and the sun's out and it's lovely. I don't want to feel like that, so I'm not having it. And I never took it again, and that was that.
I don't want to feel like that. I really like that, because that's exactly how it goes. When I can see that how I experience life in the first place, then, and I can see that, then I can say, I don't want that, but I
Absolutely.
want that. And it goes that quick.
Yeah, and it really was that quick.
So
And it was a great day surfing.
yes, and
Yeah,
it just was wonderful,
yeah,
and
yeah,
a different moment again in time. And
yeah,
that's exactly how quick it
yeah, yeah.
goes.
It really is that instantaneous, near enough.
And that is what we would like to share with you today. If you feel somehow stuck, then please get in contact with me. Have a conversation. We're here to hold your space, listen to you, and lead you to see life out of a different perspective. Is there any final words you would like to add?
Yes, actually, I think part of the reason behind the really prevalent reticence for people to talk about it prior to it is that for a long time, and still, there is some considerable misperceptions and stigma attached to it. I mean, suicide's actually illegal in the UK, so there's a massive, great big stigma attached to it right there, which is utterly ridiculous. Um, and you often hear, I'm sure loads of people will have heard this, it's a coward's way out and things like that. And I think if anyone's listening to this and they've been close to it, they'll know actually it's not an easy thing. It's really challenging. I mean, whatever your choice of exit or what you think your choice of exit is, it's scary. It really is. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of soul searching. So when people say it's a coward's way out, it's weak or whatever, that's a massive misperception. And it's okay for people to have that misperception, because how would they know if they haven't been there? They wouldn't possibly know it. So I don't want to criticize them for saying it, but the point I'm making really is if you are in that position where you feel you are really close and you can't talk about it, there are people like us, for instance, who has been there. And so it is a shared experience. There's some commonalities. Everyone is individual, of course, but there are some common things about it. And I think perhaps probably for people to know that they're actually not alone, genuinely not alone. There are people that have been in those kind of places and understand it, genuinely understand it, and the kind of the thoughts and the fears and everything that go with it. I think, that probably would have been good for me as well at the time, I'm sure. Um, So yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is the other common misperception is that you are completely out of your mind if you're in that kind of position, if you're thinking about it kind of seriously. And well, like I said earlier, my plan was very, when I look at it retrospectively, it was a great plan. It was logical, it was well thought out, it would work, it took care of everything. It was actually even considerate to those people that would have to kind of deal with the aftermath. So I planned all the details, entirely logical. So, people can be absolutely rational and logical. You can't just look at someone and go, they're off their trolley, they're thinking of killing themselves. Not at all. Not at all. So I think for people that are in that, if they understand that there are people that do genuinely understand that, then yeah, hopefully that makes it easier for them to approach someone and break the moment, basically.
That is really wonderful what you just said. Yeah, I really like that, because people like to judge other
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
And everyone in every moment gives the best they can. In that moment, you don't know it any different. And what we want with this podcast is just to show you that there is a different way. When you have a better understanding about yourself and how you experience life in the first place, then there is nothing to do or to change, but to be listened to, be accepted, to be
Not judged.
not judged.
I think that's the deal.
That's the most
Absolutely.
important one. So yeah, thank you for bringing up that point.
You're welcome.
So important. And please get in touch. We love to hear from you. Bye bye.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave me a comment or pass it on to a friend or family member to help to make a difference to their life. And if you want more support, get in touch, read my book, join my membership group, or if you want personal support, please find me over healthylivingwithpaolaroy.co.uk. You find all the links below, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.